Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome into episode 67 of Kayfabe Council, the show where we review and critique news topics and segments in the world of professional wrestling. My name is Brady Tony, and alongside me, as always, is the good brother, TF Joker. Joker, what's crack, man? What's going on?
Oh, dude, it's late on a Monday night. Just got back from work not too long ago, and gotta talk about some pay-per-views. Gotta talk about the pay-per-views, bud. But yeah, if I close my eyes for longer than a couple of seconds, then I have fallen asleep. Go on without me.
Fair play. Yeah, it's one of those where, just like with the previous week, we're getting a double slate for this past week. We got a couple pay-per-views to go over, as well as a kind of big news story that some of us are semi or not at all invested in, but we'll get into that in just a quick moment. Regardless, we got a lot to go over, so it's one of those where on release day, we might be a day off of the normal thing, but it does happen every once in a while with a Sunday pay-per-view, so appreciate everybody's thing. But Joker's a little tired. I'm tired. We've got a lot to go over, so we'll keep the intro short because I've been speaking a lot. So I'll just stop talking and we'll kick into the show proper. As a reminder, you can find us in video form at youtube.com/kayfabe council and in audio form wherever you get your podcast from. On this week's episode, we look at AEW fires CM Punk. We're going to go over the fallout from WWE Payback, going to go over the matches, some of our takeaways and kind of big spots for that, and go over the fallout from AEW All Out. Once again, go over the results, share some notes, some thoughts, some takeaways from that as well. So, coming up first. Before we get into the pay-per-views, we had a big story break just before Collision and Payback went live, actually a couple hours just before. AEW ends up firing CM Punk. I just have the statement here from the company itself. I'll read it out here. All Elite Wrestling, AEW has terminated the wrestler and employment agreements between Phillip Brooks, CM Punk, and AEW with cause, effective immediately. The termination was confirmed today by Tony Khan, CEO, General Manager, and Head of Creative of AEW. The termination follows a week-long internal investigation of an incident occurring backstage at AEW All in London on Saturday, August 27. Following the investigation, the AEW Discipline Committee met and later convened with outside legal counsel before making a unanimous recommendation to Khan that CM Punk be terminated with cause. AEW President Tony Khan also issued the following statement, quote, Phil played an important role within AEW and I thank him for his contributions. The termination of his AEW contracts with cause is ultimately my decision and mine alone. Of course, I wish I didn't have to share this news, which may come as a disappointment to many of our fans. Nevertheless, I am making the decision in the best interests of many amazing people who make AEW possible every week. Our talent, staff, venue operators, and many others whose efforts are unsung but essentially are essential to bringing our fans great shows on television and at arenas and stadiums throughout the world. End quote. So this was just announced, like I had mentioned, just before AEW Collision as well as WWE Payback. So big news on there. I know there's varying degrees and kind of hot button topics, and everyone has an opinion here. For me, after reading the statement, I was just curious and I wasn't as versed, so I wanted to look up what with cause is. So just a brief definition because it made it a point to mention it a couple times there. So what is basically termination with cause? When an employee is terminated for cause, it means that they are being let go from their position due to their own actions or behavior. When an employee's behavior or performance is unacceptable and violates company policy, they may be terminated for cause. Employees who are terminated for cause usually do not receive severance pay or unemployment benefits. And then just a little note here for context. When an employee is terminated for cause, it means that the employee has done something that is grounds for immediate dismissal from their job. They are usually two steps to terminating an employee for cause. First, the employer needs to investigate the allegations against the employee, and then second, the employer needs to hold a meeting with the employee to discuss the findings of the investigation and give them a chance to explain their side of the story. If after hearing the employee's explanation, the employer still believes that termination is warranted, then they will proceed with terminating the employee. All right, so kind of real cut and dry with the notation of with cause. It's essentially the person's own actions that cause them to be let go. One final note here. Tony Khan opened Collision with a statement addressing the news here. Quote, "Today I had to make one of the toughest decisions of my professional career. Today I terminated Phil Brooks, CM Punk, for cause. This stems from a backstage incident at AEW All In last Sunday. The incident was regrettable and it endangered people backstage. That includes the production staff, people who help put the show on every week, innocent people who had nothing to do with it. I've been going to wrestling shows for over 30 years. I've been producing them on this network for nearly 4 years. Never in all that time have I ever felt, until last Sunday, that my security, my safety, my life was in danger at a wrestling show. I don't think anybody should feel that way at work. I don't think the people I work with should feel that way, and I had to make a very difficult choice today. It came at the recommendation of a discipline committee here at AEW, as well as outside legal counsel who delivered a unanimous recommendation. And I have followed up on that recommendation. I'm sorry to any fans who were upset by this. I'm sorry to anyone who's upset by this." All right. Quite interesting. Big news that dropped. Obviously, when you let someone go from a job, it's not always announced. It is what it is in the nature of a high profile sport. Sometimes it gets sensationalized, which there was a lot of conjecture and back and forth from folks on the social medias is what it is when anything happens. There is a lot of opinions to be made. I'm only going to ask Joker one question, and I'll feel free to answer however you like, sir. Obviously, we just mentioned the dismissal of CM Punk here. There was another high-profile talent that left AEW about a year and a half ago in the name of Cody Rhodes. Although under different circumstances and different situations themselves, both men sort of had a bit of difficulty or a little tension towards the end of their runs, but both handled it in different manners and both had different sort of relationships in there. Joker, would you say that's a fair piece of two different ways to sort of handle a possible exit from a company?
We're talking about um, my favorite wrestler currently, and a guy who has steered the public eye towards him after 3 pay-per-views in a single week. So I think with Cody Rhodes working out his tenure at AEW without a contract, he was working week to week, is in a much better standpoint for a person to leave a company. He left in good stead compared to the guy who was let go because he had a hissy fit, like he has done several times before. So, no, this guy who has recently been fired, the name beneath me, I refuse to say it because he's an absolute tool bag. No, I I think Cody Rhodes, regardless of any tensions or issues he had, left in a much better way than somebody getting thrown out the door because they couldn't act right.
I think that's a fair statement. Like I mentioned, posing the question to different situations, although it was handled the exit themselves very differently. So just wanted to get that out of the way. Much like Joker just stated, something of a hot button lightning rod that Mr. Charles Montgomery Punk did to an extent overshadow 3 pay-per-views in a 7-day period, which we don't get often, if ever at all, that sort of has been taking over the landscape. So, be that as it may, we just wanted to share that, get everybody up to speed. That's where we're at with the situation. So, if you have any thoughts down and opinions there, let us know down in the comment section below on YouTube or hit us up on Twitter, Instagram. Let us know what your thoughts are on AEW parting ways with CM Punk. All right, switching gears now that we got the news portion out of the way, we're going to look at the first of the pay-per-views that happened this past weekend. Fallout from WWE Payback. This, of course, happened on the Saturday night before the All Out pay-per-view. So we'll go over that first. Pay-per-view opened with Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch fighting off in a steel cage. Honestly, just very hard-hitting affair. It was one of those where I believe they mentioned on commentary Trish had never been in a steel cage match. She'd have varying degree of other styles of matches, but she had never been in a steel cage. I made note of the photos after the fact, especially of the ones of Trish just looking very gnarly, black and blues, had a bit of, of a knot or a just contusion of sorts on her in the middle of her forehead. I think even Corey Graves perhaps made a mention that you had a almost a third eye kind of deal looking, but yeah, it was one of those. It's just crazy reactions from the crowd. So overall, just solid match. It appears to be the end of the feud, at least for the moment. Becky perhaps having a match with NXT Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton, and a little bit of dissension towards the end may lead to Trish hinting at a match with Zoe Stark. Joker, what were your impressions or thoughts from that match?
Nothing much more than what you said there. Hard hitting, good match. The only other or the first women's match that they mentioned about it being in a cage was Lita versus Victoria, I believe, way back in the day. And yeah, this being Trish Stratus's first cage match was a bit surprising. I really only have one gripe about this. Like I liked the match. I thought it was your typical steel cage match. You know the tensions. I thought that they done this really well. And it's not because he was in the pay per view in the premium live event, but John Cena turned up during this match. I don't know if you saw him or not. It might have been a little bit difficult to see him, but when Becky Lynch took on two individuals inside the steel cage, she channeled the energy of John Cena. I hate when they do this. It's a gripe that I have attributed to one person only, and that is Bianca Belair so far. But now Becky Lynch has been guilty of it now as well. On a PLE, stop having people win matches by beating two of your stars, because quite frankly, it does nothing for the two people that they beat. And after that hard hitting match, the fact that Becky Lynch could beat a fresh Zoe Stark means that Trish Stratus had zero offense. Like, I'm sorry, it deflated the end of this really good match for me. 20 minutes. I'm happy it was there. Yeah, the end of this feud. Fine. I'm not interested in Tiffany Stratton at all. She does exactly look like a wannabe Barbie, like Becky was sort of alluding to. I am more interested in the Trish and Zoe Stark match because they have been trying to build Zoe, but let's see how far that goes now that John Cena got involved.
Channeling of the man who cannot be seen, of course, overcoming the odds itself. So good to see a strong match. We're fingers crossed, hopefully ended the feud like we said. There'd been a little bit of contention. Even I think Becky had mentioned it too, that this feud itself seemed to drag on, but nonetheless,
Hmm.
it looks like a solid ending point where both women can deviate and go on to what's next for them.
It should have finished at SummerSlam. It should have finished then. This is the match we should have got, but not cut from the card to make extra time for the hour-long terrible match that we got between Roman and Jay. Like, there could have been 40 minutes cut from that match for all I cared, and we could have had this match then. But no, we had to wait. It would have done better a month earlier.
You got to prop up the other pay per views, brother. So we got a marquee matchup here stated in the fact. All right. Afterwards, we got Mr. Jonathan Chena winds up giving a promo, got a sort of raw light over here, and then we have him announced as the special guest referee for the LA Knight and Miz match. Of course, with LA Knight coming away with the win, we get a little bit of a standoff at the ramp, and Mr. Cena raises the hand of LA Knight. Not quite a passing of a torch, but a little bit of an endorsement, so love to see it. We also get the United States Championship match where we see Rey Mysterio defeats and retains over Austin Theory. Nothing kind of crazy happened in there, really, per se. It's actually the shortest match on the card, just a hair under 10 minutes, but we saw Rey Mysterio retain. Then switching gears to the Steel City street fight, just all over the place. The plunder, Sami and KO. I love the nice little touch because they were in Pittsburgh at the home of the Pittsburgh Penguins. They went into the penalty box and got dressed up with some lovely hockey jerseys and the gloves and the sticks, a la Lemieux as well as Crosby, and decided to beat the ever-loving tar out of the lads themselves, Mr. Damian Priest and Finn Balor. KO with the crazy Jeff Hardy ode with the swanton off of the stands, the grandstand itself, on to, I believe it was Finn, if I'm not mistaken. Joker, feel free to correct me if I was. But Finn on a table itself.
I think it was Finn.
I think it
I
was
might.
Finn.
I'm now beginning to think it might have been Dominic, but it probably was Finn
Okay.
because Dominic got involved.
Oh, absolutely. So I made note here, Sami and KO overcoming a 5-on-2 disadvantage from the entirety of Judgment Day and the addition of JD McDonough. But we end up having new champions as Judgment Day, Finn Balor, and Damian Priest get the win. All of Judgment Day, the image themselves of holding titles. What a look for the faction. Geez, what a push.
This is how you do an outnumbering, by the way. You have them lose. Now, anybody that comes up against the Judgment Day, you're gonna have that sort of we're tough guys and we're gonna try and beat the Judgment Day, but the Judgment Day invariably wins. I really enjoyed this. I'm not a hockey guy. The only thing I know about Pittsburgh is the Steelers from NFL, so I'm just like, okay, cool. I have no idea the Penguins, but seeing those two pop up, Sami and KO pop up in the jerseys, and everybody freaking out, and hearing Corey freak out because, of course, he's from Pittsburgh, and him freaking out about who these guys are, and then them just whacking the sticks. I've seen Mighty Ducks. I'm a hockey nerd. uh, so like seeing them use the sticks as well. Like I think even Michael Cole's like, I went to a fight and a hockey match broke out. Like a little bit of a play on the usual. But I thought this was a fun sort of match. This was definitely probably more worthy of the Terry Funk Hardcore Rules moniker than the one we got the previous week on SmackDown. Um, because at least there was some violence, even a little bit of color. So yeah, but this was fun, and I'm holding out hope that we do something with the tag titles now because they have swapped hands. They sort of lost momentum around the time of changing the titles, and we lost the ability to maybe split these tag titles. I'm hoping that Judgment Day, sort of because they run Monday Night Raw, uh, they will um, they will sort of maneuver themselves into having one singular pair of belts. Either that, or they're going to possibly get into feuds with other people on SmackDown. I don't know. Maybe that'll keep it fresh. But other than that, it's still a fun match, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, probably one of the bigger and more engaging and fun matches of the night per se. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, that image of all of the members of Judgment Day holding titles themselves, and that's a really good point of seeing maybe where they go. I could see honestly WWE holding off on changing over the Raw and SmackDown titles at the moment, at least in the immediate interim, because that would give them cause to have Judgment Day appear on both Raw and SmackDown as a little bit of an in, because the Judgment Days has been sort of their marquee faction because we have some bloodline segments every once in a while, but they've been really pushing. And honestly, I mean, doesn't act like the brand split is a hard case. We've been seeing the Miz and LA Knight been showing up on both shows anyway in the recent
Yeah,
weeks. So
I mean, I sort of get that idea, but I think that idea would have been better suited when the bloodline was stronger, because I would have liked to seen the Judgment Day versus strong bloodline, as opposed to the Judgment Day going over and losing to a weakened bloodline. Because there's no way Roman Reigns is going to be anywhere near Finn or Damian and lose. So those would be pointless matches, in my opinion, which is obviously why we don't have Roman on the books for the next PLEs. But maybe it'll give Damian an in to threaten with the the briefcase, and then that'll false sense of security against the world heavyweight champion, whoever that might be. And maybe he can win that one instead.
yeah, you'd mentioned there had been a little bit of momentum just after Sami and KO won the belts, where they were doing kind of open challenges and they were having a bit more defenses. The nature of Sami and or KO being a little bit of banged up in the recent weeks slash month have slowed that process down. So we haven't really been seeing them defending, even defending regularly. So maybe that could change. Maybe that could be a little piece. And the final note that I'll make up, that I'll share here is that, yeah, I mean, even with Sammy and KO losing the match themselves, they had to overcome a 5-on-2 disadvantage. So it's not like they're buried. They fought and fought and fought, much like a KO T-shirt. But yeah, it's one of those that they just couldn't overcome the onslaught itself, the overwhelming odds. So not necessarily buried. They still kind of look strong in defeat, and we'll see maybe where they go from here. We switch gears to this must be Raw or this must be SmackDown because we're getting a Grayson Waller effect. We're getting a talk show segment featuring the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes. Honestly, this was a little weird because I get we want to get the rub ski for both of each other's, if I can be a little heel for a second. But we had Cody on there for I think about maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and then announced that Jey Uso has returned to WWE and is a part of the Raw roster. I found it an interesting note, and I want to get your opinion on this, Joker, because Cody Rhodes is you're a big Cody Rhodes guy. He used the nomenclature, and I'm paraphrasing. I used all my political sway and pull essentially to get Jay back into WWE and part of Raw. So maybe what were your thoughts on maybe that phrasing and maybe just the segment in general?
I thought the segment was fun. I always like Grayson Waller effect. I think Grayson Waller is probably the best show host in WWE today and in the last while. I used to like Miz TV, but eh, you know, Grayson Waller is better. I feel like he's more skeevy, and just kind of gets the ability to be a sort of talk show host. That being said, with what Cody said, I sort of got it and I sort of didn't. I didn't mind the quitting, heavily air quoted by the way, of Jey Uso. It led to all the marks going, "Oh my goodness, Jey Uso to AEW, please." Which was actually on the timeline, and then for him to turn up at Raw, which was obviously getting him away from his brother and from his cousin. I thought it was fine. It kind of also gives Cody a reason to be linked to the bloodline. And for WrestleMania next year, WrestleMania 40, the confirmation is all but, stated publicly that it will be Cody versus Roman main eventing, most likely night 2, for that Universal Undisputed Heavyweight Ultra Cool Gold Belt Championship, with Jay being on Raw now. Because it gives the bloodline a reason to chase Jay. And who will be there to help him? His new friend Cody Rhodes. They will start to think about Jay being corrupted by Cody Rhodes or something like this here, and it's all Cody Rhodes' fault, and then Cody Rhodes versus Roman at WrestleMania. That's sitting thinking on it. That was sort of my idea, as a loose bare bones idea as to how they might possibly spin this. His use of the terms, I had to use all my political pull, sway, whatever he said to get this. I thought it was, tongue in cheek, kind of funny. But it wasn't until that we saw Cody's stern face when he was down the rampway, looking back at Jay and Grayson, that you could see the cogs a spinning. This is my way to get back to Roman. So yeah, he didn't do it for Jay. He did it for himself, and honestly, I think it was pretty fun.
Did it for himself. What a heel.
No. He's a forward-thinking baby face. He's looking towards
The future.
getting his way back into the title picture, because he doesn't want the belt that he's on the brand with.
Couple takeaways for me from the segment. Jay just looking real good. Obviously, he's been getting his physique and just cardio and everything and well in order, and he looked great on this night. Love the fact that he got to keep the Uso style theme song, because it fits kind of with his vibe of playing into the crowd. I mean, when he got on the ropes and he was, bouncing up and down with his hands, and the crowd was reciprocating. I mean, that was a fantastic visual. I mean, you love the crowd interaction. You love that visual there. And they changed up the song a little bit. I think they took the Jimmy vocals,
Yeah, they
the
did,
Jimmy
yeah.
lines out, and he's like, I'm the only one, Oos, and kind of thing. But I still like that he was able to flip the script, if you will, and keep that. So it works very well.
I really like that too. It was definitely one of those things that you look at and you go, "Oh, it's a recognizable sort of thing." Oh, wait, there's a little bit of a difference. Because I like the day one ish song. Like I really liked their theme. I thought the Usos have a definitive sort of song that while not Alter Bridge or something, is still pretty cool, because they did the rapping, they did the singing, whatever you want to whatever you want to call it, and to have that change gives us the definitive split, because 9 times out of 10, whenever you see these kind of pseudo splits, it's like, oh, it's not permanent. They're still using the same theme song, but this one's changed, so they're definitely playing into that, and I like that from a story point.
Yeah, it's a fair play. Myself, as a side note, big Alter Bridge fan, huge Miles Kennedy fan, been a fan since about 2003, 2004. So dig those songs. Either
I'm
way,
not trying to not trying to attack Alter Bridge here.
no, it's all good. I was just sharing a little something about myself. But yeah, just a couple things in my mind. There had been notions of having a Jay versus Jimmy, and there were thoughts on maybe when that could happen. Some folks that said we should wait till Mania, perhaps, but with them definitively being apart, and even I mentioned that, and I think you said as well, like if they're maybe on the same brand or together, then you kind of have to. There's no reason not to have the match, but them on a different brand can help them eventually circle back or something happens, and then you can have that sort of time frame. So I mean, that's a ploy to at least position and time it well. And then ultimately, your notion of this is an in for Cody with the bloodline, perhaps. I mean, there's been murmurings both from potentially the Fed as well as from social media that they want to set up Cody and Roman 2 at WrestleMania 40. If I'm not mistaken, if I was doing the math for Roman to beat Hogan's mark of just days holding the title, he would need to surpass WrestleMania 40. So who knows? I mean, it's one of those that I think even Roman and or Paul Heyman have stated when Roman's ready, he will let the Fed know that he is done. They put it on the next person type of thing, whether I'm paraphrasing, of course, but be that as it may, I think that was a Paul Heyman interview and Paul Heyman statement. Be that as it might. But with that as it may, I mean, could it possibly lead to the rematch? Consecutive WrestleManias, we've seen that a handful of times, less than a handful of times. Obviously, it harkens back to most prominently a Bret Hart and Yokozuna from 93 and 94's WrestleManias, 9 and 10, just off the top of my head. But be that as it may, could be an end. Could it gives them the smallest of small avenues to potentially have that story play. So seed planting from a little bit of a talk show segment on a not the greatest prominent pay-per-view gives them an in. So if only it's good for the video package format if we do land on that match. All right, the next portion we're going to look at here. Rhea Ripley ends up defeating Raquel Rodriguez for the Women's World Championship. Hard-hitting affair. One of those where it's not often Rhea Ripley has to face off an opponent that is almost equal or slightly bigger than her. So just power moves, clotheslines. It was kind of nice to see a different style of match from Rhea. How many times have we seen almost a squash or a squash and just mostly her dominating? So a little bit different flavor of the ice cream here. So I wasn't mad at it. I thought it was just a fun and engaging match, honestly, but a little sadly predictable, if I may say. Is that fair to say, Joker?
Oh yeah, 100%. Raquel Rodriguez, or as a slip of the tongue from Corey Graves Gonzalez, in the match. I'm not a fan of how she's packaged. I don't like Big Back Rodriguez. This constant posing. Just I feel like she needs to be. Uh, I don't want to really have to have a carbon copy, but a sort of pseudo copy of Mommy in terms of they both need to be behemoths in this division. Because this match was really fun for a good portion of it. You don't often see Rhea Ripley getting to show her power moves over and over and over again. It's always okay. I'm going to have to take a head scissors and take a Hurricane Rana. I'm going to take, I'm going to have to take all of these flippy dippy moves from people who are smaller than me. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Like Zelina Vega is a tiny person compared to Raquel Rodriguez. And all these other like Io Skies, and they're all much smaller than Rhea Ripley. And whenever you watch a Rhea Ripley versus smaller person fight, they invariably just have this instance where Rhea will power through. Like we had Rhea's submission maneuver where she just holds up. Like normally with a smaller person, she'll hold them up in the air, them unable to touch the ground. Raquel here was able to touch the ground and viably within the confines of the match, support herself and ease off the intended pain of the maneuver. It makes sense, and it was a lot of fun. It makes sense, and when those things happen, it's good to see how that big brawny character like Mommy is going to evolve in the match. And I really like the touch of the sort of the China esque gear that Rhea Ripley was wearing. It was a nice touch. I think that this was obviously, yes, like you said, predictable. because Rhea Ripley has a chokehold on that division, and I don't think she should let go anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a fair observation. Yeah, and I was reminded of the when you were talking about the submission, that inverted clover leaf that she locks him up
Yes.
with. Yeah, it's okay. That was it came to me while you were responding, so all good. Yeah, it was one of those, like I said, a little bit different style of match, and it reminded me myself of Nia Jax previously, who used to have just a lot of big versus small matches. It's just kind of the nature of the case. But Rhea was able to have a different style of match and show a different sort of athleticism than Nia would maybe have against maybe the opponents themselves. So again, different wrestlers, but it was good to see the variety. They Raquel and Rhea previously spent a lot of time together in NXT and other places. So you love to see, much like a Brett and Owen, when two people want to sell and put on a good match for each other, you can get a solid performance here. So great to see that bunch of good sisters just going at it on a pay-per-view. And once again, Rhea came out with the victory. And the last match on the card, Seth Rollins taking on Shinsuke Nakamura. I did like the video package, a nice little comic book style, just recapping kind of where they're at and Shinsuke's point of view and where Seth is with sort of the back injury itself. Just high impact offense. Obviously, the notion of the story of the match itself was Shinsuke targeting the back, but yeah, a little bit of a interesting finishing sequence that had the lads in a submission attempt, and then kind of Seth just sort of wriggling out, and then hits the stomp, and yeah, that was it. Got the 1, 2, 3. I did like the nice little added touch of Shinsuke tried to kind of get the shoulder up, but just kind of couldn't. He was trying to reach for the ropes type of thing, but he was just too out of it, and the effects of the stomp itself. So, other than that, thought it was just another just fun, engaging match with Seth coming out on top and retaining.
I went back and forth. I honestly thought Shinsuke could win this. I would have really liked Shinsuke to win this. This was Shinsuke's very first main event in a PLE for World Heavyweight Championship. Like apparently this is his first main event in this, and you're just like, yeah, okay, cool. He's had like big matches with like AJ Styles and stuff for titles before, but they've never been the premium main event. And which is funny because the last few PLEs have had multiple main events. I wonder why this one didn't have 4 or 5 as well on a 6 match card. Um, but I just really liked the sort of jeopardy the boys instilled in this, because yes, Seth, we've known for months now that Seth has this fracture in his lumbar spine, and it's one of those that every time you hear it, you go, that sounds like it could be painful. And yeah, like the lumbar spine having a fracture there sounds like it definitely would be. And seeing the dissection from Shinsuke to the lower back of Seth Rollins was brutal, fun, and interesting to watch. And there were a few instances where the 2.99 quoting Excalibur ad infinitum um, that we could have had. Like there was some interesting points in this match, and I'm not sure the right man won.
Yeah, they tried to plant seeds of doubt, much like you said is a really good thing for storytelling or for a match themselves. That could Shinsuke, because Seth has got a bullseye, a target on his back, could he possibly come away with a win? It gives Seth an out because he's, injured and he can have some time off, but they decided to keep the belt on Seth. So, I mean, it's one of those where I could see it going either way from how it ended up. Seth obviously retained. It'd be a nice little twist of the play to have Shinsuke actually be the world champion. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it. I just would like to see them elevate and give him a nice proper run, perhaps. So, yeah, I mean, we ended up with what we got. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, after the show went off the air, Shinsuke did a attack on Seth post match. So it was one of those where we end up kind of continuing, perhaps. We might get a little bit of a rematch. We might get some context added on Monday Night Raw or going forward. But yeah, I wouldn't be mad with maybe seeing another match, or maybe we'll see who Seth faces next.
Seth is in that coveted position of world heavyweight champion, and he is also in the coveted position of man who has a lot of trilogies. So do not rule out more Shinsuke main events with Seth for this title.
Quite the possibility. So there we go. That was WWE Payback. Those were our thoughts and our impressions. Let us know down in the comment section below on YouTube, and or hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, and let us know what your thoughts were from WWE Payback. Maybe what your favorite match or segment was, and did your favorites win their matches? All right, switching gears here to the next pay-per-view, the next day on Sunday. So back-to-back days, we had AEW All Out from Chicago. A very loaded card. We got 13 matches on this bad boy here. Just starting with the 0 hour, Hangman Adam Page making a shocking surprise entrance here into the over-budget charity battle royale, and subsequently winning here. Made note that he won $50,000 and put it towards the Chicago Public Education Fund. So nice little switch up of the over-the-budget battle royale and put it for charity. We also saw on the pre-show the babyface team of Hikaru Shida, Willow Nightingale, and Sky Blue defeated Athena, Mercedes Martinez, and Diamante. Of course, with Sky Blue, the hometown girl, getting the pinfall win there. And the 0 hour pre-show main event. We saw the acclaimed Anthony Bowens and Max Caster alongside Father Butt himself, Daddy Ass Billy Gunn, also known collectively as the House of Ass, defeated Jeff Jarrett, Satnam Singh, and Jay Lethal. Nice little bit of ska there. Dennis Rodman, who appeared on the previous night's Collision, of course, with them being in Chicago, was in their corner, had a little bit of an interesting thing at the end. He got involved, used the guitar, and stayed in the ring. Aubrey Edwards letting that go, but they ultimately get the win and retain their new and customized AEW World Trios Championship.
Nobody tells Rodzilla what to do, dude. Like I'm pretty sure he missed his mark to get into the ring. Like he was slow to get in, and he was just like, "Nah, bro, I don't want to get out." What do you mean? It's like, the match is almost over. I don't want to get out. Like I know the ending. Like this means at the end. Like no, there's no point me to get out to get back in. I thought this 0 hour was fun. Nice touch with Hangman. Nice little charity battle royale. And the House of Ass. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that name. Not like I love the Acclaimed, but I like the House of Black. Okay, let's not sort of riff on the original perpetrators of the House name. You know, the House of Black. Let's keep them unique. I as much as I love Anthony Bowens and Max Caster, let's not employ this House of Ass because everybody's going to use it. Then the House of Black will just be like, right, well, we've got to change our name now. So, yeah, it's a little thing. It's still fun. You know, I don't want to be sitting here like, oh, the guy that doesn't like fun because I think it is funny. But I rolled my eyes whenever I saw that they tried. I think that they have filed to trademark House of Ass, or at least done something with that title. Yeah, I don't know about that, but still fun 0 hour.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was a off the cuff segment in their celebration piece, and I just wanted to get it over on the show. I didn't realize that they were maybe trying to make this a thing, but
I saw a tweet. I'm not 100%. I did see a tweet. I'm pretty sure it was from an AEW account, but that's why I'm saying I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, let's not.
Fair play. So yeah, let's nothing wrong with the House of Black. It's very unique. It sets itself apart, kind of have a thing. So thanks to be seen. But yeah, I just wanted to softball it in there. So there we go. All right, on to the main show itself. We opened with the ROH Tag Team Title Championship match. As we see Better Than You, Baby, Adam Cole and MJF taking on the Dark Order's Alex Reynolds and John Silver. A bit of the story of the match here was MJF coming in banged up with his neck being injured. Of course, this is coming off the heels of Adam Cole and MJF's main event match at All in London. Obviously, Adam Cole targeting the neck with a lot of his offense and things of such. But we see here, at least MJF starting the match and kind of going that. But at one point, he has to be taken away, and Adam Cole is fighting solo. See a little bit of the babyface side as the team tries to get some sympathy from the crowd. Obviously, MJF selling the neck and MJF being taken away there, but we end up seeing him after Adam Cole, fights off quite a bit of the Dark Order's offense, makes the surprise return. Huge baby face pop. We have the camera on the ring itself, and then we hear the crowd explode and cut to the ramp and MJF fighting off of the officials and the security. No, I want back in. Comes back in. We end up having them just win the match, essentially. So it was nice to kind of see that. Of course, at the end of the match, we see even though MJF was able to fire up and be able to help the match, huge babyface fire, by the way. So we get a nice little callback here with MJF making his way up the ramp. And of course, the show's got to keep going on, brother. So Samoa Joe is making his entrance for his match, which is coming up next. And Joe gives him a nice little stiff arm as he was going down the ramp. Of course, MJF getting a little peeved, if you say that you will. And this was a nice little callback to NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, where Samoa Joe was making his entrance from the backstage area. MJF played the role of a security guard, and Joe gave him a nice little stiff arm. So the continuity in the entire wrestling sphere is nice little there. But yeah, MJF getting super angry and actually comes after Samoa Joe and had to be broken up by security and AEW officials to keep Max okay and not injured, to keep the show going, to get the next match going. This is something I realized I didn't know I wanted, was Samoa Joe and MJF.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that sounds like it could be a lot of fun. As soon as because I looked away. I looked away at this point in time. I heard Joe's music. I was like, cool, they're gonna walk around. I was doing something else on my other monitor while I was watching this morning, and I had to go back because they made mentions like, oh, well, blah 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 blah. And I was like, "Oh, that's a bit of a callback to whenever he did the takeover entrance." It's like, that's really fun. Oh, we're actually he's going to run into the ring. Okay, cool. I hope he doesn't get suspended for this indefinitely, or fired because the last champion did. Um, and it was funny to see MJF sort of run into the ring and try and beat up Joe, and everybody just sort of getting in the way, and Joe just kind of laughing his head off. Yeah, I thought it was fun. It's nice, and like you said, it's something that I didn't know that I wanted, but I sure as heck want it now. Although I don't want it to be title for title because I kind of like both of them being champions. So I'm hoping it's after Joe has crested the record of longest reigning Ring of Honor World Television Champion and then loses it. So then goes after because he needs a new belt. So there we go. Hopefully that'll happen.
Yeah. So quite intriguing. And I thought it was an okay placement looking back at how the rest of the show panned out to have MJF and Adam Cole sort of open. You have that kind of bookend piece with the world champion being in the opening match, but it's for his tag team championships. Yeah, I thought honestly match was good. It's high athletic. You can't sometimes sleep on Alex Reynolds and John Silver. They also are athletic themselves and just put on an entertaining match. So yeah, but we to be fair, a predictable winner there. And like I said, I think that's a fair point in terms of a possible Samoa Joe and MJF match. I'd love to see it, but yeah, I think it's one of those where maybe if it's after the title reign record for Joe, and then maybe after he drops it to somebody else, because I don't want to necessarily see Joe lose. We did come off of All In. He took a loss there in another match. So, in terms of high profile matches, I don't want to see him constantly lose. I'm a Joe fan, but regardless, I still want to see the match. So
Oh yeah. Big Joe's gonna kill some more people. Joe's gonna kill you. Chance ringing out here, and you effed up, Chance. I honestly think Samoa Joe goes into that match killer, and MJF squeaks a win if it's for the AEW title. But it's definitely going to be after Joe has dropped that Ring of Honor World Television Championship that he currently has, because I feel like he is not the one that cares. Like, as we know, Joe, he is the king of television. He doesn't need any other belt. He is the king of television. It's not in his character. But possibly this new babyface MJF may take umbrage towards Samoa Joe. We might see something like him challenging Joe, which is substantially out of character. Um, but I definitely enjoyed it. I was about to get into a fan theory of MJF's neck, but then I stopped myself. So I'll save that for another time.
fair play. All right, so we see the next match, as we alluded to, Samoa Joe taking on Shane Taylor for the Ring of Honor World Television Championship. For those that haven't seen Shane Taylor, just big, beefy boy. He was another Ring of Honor World Television Championship holder, and put some prominence on there. But yeah, just two big old boys, and we'll get into that in a moment of other big, beefy boys. But yeah, just a hard-hitting affair. Joe coming away with the win here. Moving on to the next match, the AEW, TNT Championship, Luchasaurus taking on Darby Allin. This was another feel of a big man versus a little man, but it had a little bit different twist because we have the sort of daredevil nature of Darby Allin come into play. Just brutal offense from that. Darby getting some color. And then, of course, the Christian element as well as the Nick Wayne piece. So even though Darby was taking a lot of brutal offense, Christian psychologically coming into play, perhaps targeting Nick Wayne. But we ultimately see Luchasaurus just pulverizing Darby Allin at the end, coming away with the win and retaining. Christian possibly attempting to hit a concerto, but I like the nice little touch of the AEW roster just be like, no, we're not letting you destroy these two young kids, and we're gonna stand up to you. Whether that leads to anything, be that as it may, but possibly a lot of those folks might have some father issues for Christian to talk about.
It's definitely going to be one of those things. Christian Cage is a fiend right now with asking, at the All Out press conference, well, how's everybody's fathers doing today? He is an absolute menace to society, and I love it. Um, I don't I don't think he actually has anyone lined up like anywhere near the TNT title scene now that Darby Allin is out of the way. Darby should not be going after this belt again for a little while yet. Possibly Nick Wayne will want to. Maybe they'll enter into some sort of tag team shtick, with Darby and his dad. Now that Darby and his son can maybe also enter the tag teams, or maybe we'll see Darby and with his dad and with his son enter the trios. You'll never know. Um, yeah, this was a fun match. I liked actually seeing Luchasaurus do something, which was fun. A little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. It's about 12 minutes ish, and I think that might have been one of the longest Luchasaurus matches ever.
Yeah, it's one of those where he's quite the imposing figure and agile as well, so he can do a lot more than maybe your standard kind of big man from like the 80s type of match. But yeah, I'm wondering where the TNT title goes from here. I feel like it's a running theme that we're constantly just like, all right, well, does it need to be built up? Does these things? So maybe we'll kind of see what the next challenger might be. But yeah, I think maybe Darby had his chance. Unfortunately, he did not win, and we can see another challenger going forward. The next matchup, perhaps the most fun matchup from AEW All Out, Miro taking on Powerhouse Hobbs. Of course, there was a lot of fan engagement, shall we say, in this one. During said match, Excalibur on commentary makes the comment of two meaty men slapping meat. An incredible line from the incomparable Biggie Langston. But we get into probably, like I said, the most fun and engaging match. We get incredible crowd chants, such as slap that meat. We get meat chants whenever each competitor strikes their opponent. We also get a meat forever chant. And towards the end, we get a holy meat chant. Oh my god. Fantastic. Biggie is not a proponent. He doesn't necessarily want to see 5-star matches. He just wants to see, like he's mentioned, big meaty men slapping meat. And to be fair, I think we were absolutely given that in this match.
Oh, I've used that quote to death. I love big meaty men slapping meat in this match. It took me a second to realize what the crowd was doing, what they were chanting, and I found myself involuntarily laughing and joining in as there was a meat as there was the boys were slapping each other. Like we had Samoa Joe versus Shane Taylor was not a small man match. Like that was not a flippy dippy match. That was another hard hitting brutal match. And these boys, Miro and Powerhouse Hobbs, I love them. They also you clasp hands at the end in that iconic pose, and yeah, I thought that the crowd engagement was amazing with this. Um, there was one more sort of phrase uttered in the next segment though that I just thought was the boys in the crowd just taking the absolute mick out of everybody. And it was just beat that meat. I'm like, yes, yes, highbrow. We're watching some highbrow entertainment here, individuals. Good job.
Yeah, so we end up seeing with those big meaty men slapping meat. Ultimately, Miro comes away with the win via submission with the accolade. Of course, we get that nice little clasp hands, perhaps an homage to a Carl Weathers Arnold Schwarzenegger, you son of a bee. But it was a cool visual. Then ultimately, we have Powerhouse Hobbs, a bit of a sore loser. Post match attacks Miro. But who do we see making their AEW debut to make the save? None other than CJ Perry, formerly known as Lana in the WWE. For those that aren't aware, that would be Miro's real life wife. Comes in to make the save, grabs a chair, strikes Powerhouse Hobbs to get him off. Miro comes in to take over, ultimately sees CJ in the ring and screams that she's not real. So, and we're left fading to black on that. So,
And the guys in the crowd already thought that she was real though. Like they were chanting "beat that meat," and I thought it was kind of funny. I didn't get this. I'm gonna have to wait for the continuation of this story from Miro. He has forsaken her, or whatever he said in his tweet earlier on. And yeah, a little bit odd. But it's nice to see CJ Perry back with her husband.
yeah, get a little payday. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
All right, from there, we switch gears. We get the only women's match on the main show here. Kris Statlander taking on Ruby Soho for the TBS Championship. Of course, the Outcasts, Saraya was in the corner of Ruby Soho throughout the match, causing some distractions. I thought it was a little kind of a funny spot where they meet on the outside and Soraya's causing a distraction and she runs away like kind of oddly and frilly. This is supposed to be a tough Norwich girl who's the women's world champion. I thought that was just a little bit of an odd
I
spot
must have
there.
missed that.
So
I must have missed that myself.
yeah, but towards the end, we end up getting the interference is coming into play. Ruby wants to use the hairspray or the green spray paint. Tony Storm comes out from underneath the ring, takes it away, causes the distraction on Ruby, and ultimately leads to Kris Statlander winning the match. So, much like an All in London, we're playing up a little bit of a dissension in the ranks of the Outcasts. So, we saw them together on Collision the night before, but we had this odd little bit of a booking. But yeah, Kris Statlander coming away with the win.
I'm not understanding the Tony Storm psychosis change. I feel like maybe I've missed something and I'm not interested enough to go back and figure out what it was. So this could be lost on me by the time there is a payoff. Not 100% sure what's going on with the Outcasts, but this match was fine. I love the Derek Zoolander references from Kris Statlander. Love to see the fact that we had Excalibur educating good old JR about what blue steel was and everything. Yeah, this was fun. I'm a little bit disappointed it was the only women's match on the main part of the card, especially considering there's 10 matches we possibly could have fitted in Soraya there, but let's give her a week off. She just won the big belt. But yeah, it was a good match.
Yeah, it was one of those. Just the cliff notes are Tony Storm sort of losing a bit of fragility in her mind after losing the AEW Women's Championship and just kind of being a little bit of a. I think Excalibur mentioned it on there. Her physical look and the way she's doing her hair is a throwback to those golden age of the 50s and stuff like that with all the actresses in that. But the type of character she's flustered. She can't believe it. She's awestruck. She's throwing shoes at people, and it's just crazy. And so,
And the birds. I
yeah,
heard she was
she's
throwing shoes at birds in the car park from Ruby Soho. Yeah,
yeah,
I heard that one.
yeah. So she's kind of slowly losing her mind. I'm liking it because it's so subtle. It's just a nice little flavoring text of the kind of character thing. She's being like more unhinged, but she's trying to hold it together and things. So that's just the cliff notes. So,
Maybe that's why I'm not getting it because like it started so subtly, and I'm just like I must have missed something that kind of started the change. That's more what I mean. Is like I get the whole wanting to be a little bit crazy and a little bit psycho. I actually prefer Tony Storm that way. I think she's actually doing a really good job. I just think that the turn is lost on me. I'll just enjoy the outcome.
fair play. So. I'll make one small note. I would love to see that Tony Storm and Juice Robinson, two unhinged characters, also married in real life, don't necessarily need to get together on screen, but I love probably the chaos that could happen in a fictional version of their household. So
She just turns up in a Bullet Club Gold meeting one day and throws shoes at cardboard Jay White or what is it?
hardboard maybe
No,
cardboard maybe.
it's something to do with the Jay White cardboard statue. They like can't remember the name of it. It's so silly, but they all have nicknames and stuff. And yeah, I think she should just turn up to Bullet Club Gold meeting one day and start throwing shoes, and
There you
then
go.
just kiss rock hard, and then run off.
There you go. So once again, switching gears on a completely different scale, we get the no disqualification strap match. The returning American Dragon Bryan Danielson taking on Ricky Starks. Of course, this was in place of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who was on commentary for this. But all in all, just gotta say, brutal match between Danielson and Starks. I mean, some of those strap shots were just the sound of them and the visual, and these guys going for broke. I mean, we got Danielson getting color in that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The welts we ended up seeing forming on Stark's back there, the little added element of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat coming out to help neutralize a Big Bill was a nice little touch. We get the piece of Danielson not quite being a baby face, sort of aligning with a ever apparent baby face in Steamboat. We still have him being kind of the heel because he's part of the BCC and he's just a brutal. He wants to kick your Jeff and head in as he screams towards the end of the match. But yeah, I thought this was just, man, a bit of nasty there. And all in all, even though we get the, I guess, what they call a technical knockout or technical submission on Starks because he passed out in the match itself. But man, I think just a strong showing from Ricky in a match with Bryan Danielson. And I think it's, even though Ricky took the loss, it's a win overall for Ricky to help raise his stock.
Oh, 100%, definitely agree. It was a brutal match. Bit of color. Yeah, I thought it was perfectly fine. I did like the brutality of it. Strap matches are always something that I sort of look at through the side eye because they can be a bit brutal. But I just don't understand PT. Yet again, this is another person that seems to just be a little bit unhinged without actually showing that they're unhinged. Bryan Danielson coming out to the aid of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I'm like, but you're a heel. You're doing a babyface thing. You're acting like a babyface, and then 5 minutes later in the main event, you're heel again. I just, maybe this flip floppity nature of the Bryan Danielson character is lost on me. I would have just preferred Bryan Danielson to have a different inroad to be doing this. Although he did come out with the bandage still on his broken arm that has that metal rod in it, so maybe this was the intended spot for that guy that got sacked at the start of the week.
I think, yeah, I think it's a nature of a circumstance. I think we were hearing murmurings that the actual match was supposed to be Ricky and Punk together, but unfortunately, because of that, they slotted Bryan Danielson in. Which, I mean, honestly, like, I can't fault if Bryan was healthy enough to
Oh,
have
it's
the
a better
match.
match.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
So
yeah, it's
I'm all
100%. We got
for
a
it.
better
So
match out
yeah,
of it. I don't know about like that other guy. I hear he keeps getting injured all the effing time. He just cannot hold on to his water at all. And I think Ricky Starks would have completely demolished him anyway. So yeah, having Bryan Danielson in this match is 100% better. And I loved the interview with Bryan Danielson before this. The last time I was in a strap match, I was in that match with a person that I loved. Of course, referencing Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda, who we recently lost. And he said we beat the absolute shit out of each other. And what do you think I'm going to do to you? And he did exactly that.
yeah. It was one of those where I think it was a net positive all around for it. I do like the chaotic nature of Danielson. He gets cheered, comes out of the heel tunnel. He does some dastardly things. He wants to kick people's Jeff and head in. He's not
Yep.
above taking shortcuts, but he'll also like have a sort of a morality thing where he'll kind of stand up for, mostly the things that are kind of right, even though he is not ahead or will still be able to attack people from behind. So when it's deep down, he can do the right thing, but he always doesn't choose to do the right thing. But yeah. And then one tiny note, I was afraid that they were gonna, with strap matches, the rules are always never clear. Sometimes you got to hit the four corner pads, but I'm glad they didn't decide to do that and just go with basically we ended up getting a submission. So I thought that was a cleaner rule set to have in this one. All right, next one here, Blackpool Combat Club, Claudio and Wheeler taking on Eddie Kingston and Katsuyori Shibata. Just going away. Of course, just hard-hitting affair whenever you get a Kingston and a Shibata and a Blackpool Combat Club members. I did like that they waited to give us the Eddie Kingston and Claudio to the latter portion of the match, of course, with all their heat and everything. But yeah, just another just ridiculously just knockdown drag out with ultimately Claudio and Wheeler coming away with the win. The next one here, Konosuke Takeshita taking on Kenny Omega. Just, geez, highly athletic match, ridiculous. Of course, a nice little touch with Kenny's attire there, the green, the orange, and the white shades of his attire from DDT, of course, where these two men have history. But yeah, just athleticism, the knee strikes, the clotheslines, the strikes themselves were ridiculous with that. Don Callis, I like that he didn't play too much of a role. Like, it wasn't constant distraction. It wasn't all this kind of thing. He did have the spot on the outside, piling up the chairs for the tope that Konosuke ultimately hit on Kenny. Of course, the screwdriver spot at the end was a little ridiculous. The visual of him just stabbing the mat. But crazy to see that Konosuke getting 2 pinfalls over Kenny Omega in a week's time. Man, great push for Konosuke over here.
I'm actually really liking it. I like Konosuke a lot. There's a lot of upside to him. I'm hoping. I was going to say hoping that this is a short term thing. I don't know. I hope that this develops into something a little bit better for Konosuke, because as much as Don Callis is that skeezy sort of manager character, he is, if I can compare him, he is no Paul Heyman. He's not this sort of like I create superstars in my mind. In my mind, he's sort of tagging himself onto greatness as opposed to being able to sort of elevate it like Paul Heyman seemingly does. It's just one of those, with the exception of Cesaro that one time. But it's one of those things that you look at and you go, a lot of upside to Konosuke, and it's a huge deal for him getting a win, singles win over the Best Bite Machine.
I'm just glad you didn't mention Paul Heyman's partnership with a certain big guy who likes to be fed more and more and more. So,
I don't know. He's retired as well.
there you go. But yeah, just overall, just crazy, just athletic match there. One of the longer matches on the card itself, over 20 minutes. And yeah, just great signaling for Konosuke going forward to have those just pins over Kenny. So, yeah. Penultimate match here, Bullet Club Gold taking on the combined team of FTR and the Young Bucks. This was just ridiculously chaotic. Of course, we're having the story of the match that a united Bullet Club Gold can just seamlessly go in and out, but FTR and the Young Bucks, obviously long-standing rivals, trying to get along. The early portion seeing not being favorable to tag one another in, but the latter quarter of the match sees them finally get on the same page. I mean, we see the nice little combinations at one point. Dax is setting up for the pile driver, and Matt ends up coming in on to sit on Brett Rope to hit that spiked version. We get nice little combined tag team elements of FTR and the Young Bucks doing super kick parties. At one point, I think it was Nick came in to help with the shatter machine. So it was cool to see the symmetry when they were able to kind of get on the same page. Of course, obviously, they're rivals themselves. But yeah, it was ultimately we get the pinfall, or excuse me, the win for Bullet Club Gold on this one. And Nick almost couldn't try to break up the pinfall there on I believe it was Cash, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been Dax, but either way. He was just late, so we had them kind of argue, but they didn't come to blows at the end. They were just kind of peeved. They were just sort of generally upset they lost the hard-fought match.
It was one of those matches that it made sense though. I like the fact that we had that. We always see the how will they coexist team win, and I hate that. Like, oh, how are they going to coexist and sort of beat this team that's been together? It's like, harken back to WWE throwing tag teams of people together, like, let's say Stone Cold and Triple H, and them just winning the tag titles. Like, wait, these guys were rivals, and then you threw them together and they beat tag teams just because, oh, we're main event stars. So clearly we're the singular portion of us is better than the singular reviews. Like, yeah, but these guys are they're a cohesive team. And the best thing about this was one of these teams beat the other team, and there's a sort of admission of annoyance between them with the handshakes and stuff. So I really like this. Um, I also like the fact that I believe it was Colton Gunn that got the pin. I was like, okay, cool. Like, that's huge. Like, that is absolutely huge for Colton Gunn to get the pin. Um, because this is one of those things that he is the least experienced out of the bunch. Like, Austin not being much more experienced than him, but still. Um, it wouldn't have said much if Jay White had have pinned Dax or anybody. I really like this. I thought it was fun. I continue to love the Guns entrance, the Bullet Club entrance on this one with everybody, doing the bang bang gang and the spit in the water. I think is a fun visual. Yeah, really really good. I can't wait to see where Bullet Club Gold goes after this.
Yeah, a lot of positives coming out of that. I did like it's never fun when the trope of two people that can't get along, like you said, can defeat a long established and well oiled machine tag team. So at least they didn't kind of go there. The other notion of, yeah, I believe it was, I knew it was one of the Guns. So Colton just getting the pin on a tag team champion. So that could lead to something. Also, some positives for Bullet Club Gold as a cohesive unit. They looked really, really good and solid, and just honestly the two teams of Jay and Juice together with the Guns, I mean, they just were just killing it. And that's no slack
Oh
on
yeah.
FTR and Young Bucks, obviously, who are great tag teams themselves.
Yeah, I definitely can't take away from the fact that we had that really cool shatter machine that you mentioned earlier on, and the BTE trigger, even though Dax looked at his watch as if it was clobbering time. The thing isn't part of this, my guy. It's fine. Um, so it was fun. I liked it. There was the definite competition versus camaraderie, and I can't wait to see where things go. I kind of want the Guns and Juice, rock hard because I love saying his name. Going after the trios. Not saying it has to happen right now, but I'd really like them to go after the trios, and for now, Jay to go after the international title. We could have that. That'd be super fun. We could have Jay and Juice go after the tag titles. We could have the Guns go after the tag titles. There's so much to do with this Bullet Club Gold. And yeah, it's definitely something that is going to freshen up the tags or trios division.
Yeah, fantastic. Once again, great to see the Bullet Club Gold get that push ski, much like Konosuke in the previous match, getting the win and kind of see where they go. And yeah, I mean, if we can get some more of that great entrance, I mean, we started with the two Guns, and then we added Juice as we circle to the back, and then we have Jay obviously added to the front. So I mean, the symmetry is just great. Nice little entrance there. I mean, yeah, makes them feel like a big deal, and they definitely cemented that fact here. All right, last match on the card, your main event of the evening. Orange Cassidy taking on Jon Moxley for the AEW International Championship. Solid match. I mean, it goes from even before the match started, that promo of John, I believe, which took place on Collision,
They
putting
did.
over putting over Orange. I mean, he's, everyone's calling this guy a cosplayer of being a wrestler, but who's he cosplaying? I mean, this guy's just, you know, it's one of those things. Moxley is just such a great piece, especially, no slack to the Dean Ambrose character, but the John Moxley, especially like in the last year or so, especially the Blackpool Combat Club, John Moxley, when he's facing off or he has a match and he gets a chance to do a promo and he's putting you over. I mean, he does it in such an elegant way that you can't necessarily argue with the things he says. Like, you know, who is he? This guy's a wrestler, right? He has been defending. He has been putting on matches. Yes, he's been beaten down, but he's been overcoming the odds. And now it's me. It's my time. I want a shot at him. I've been feuding with him, this, that, and a third. I've been AEW champion, but I want this title. I mean, like, he's just giving you a reason as to why you can't discount him. And it reminds me of, this is the way you should do a promo to hype up your opponent specifically. Because if you do the opposite, this guy's a slack. I can beat him in 10 seconds and second third, and you put him down, it means nothing. But if this guy beats you, then what does that say? You make them feel important, hype the match up. It's just great. So, quick note before the match even got started, you made it feel important.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And WWE, take note. This is how you make a mid card title important. Because this was the AEW Irish Seas English Channel All Access, side international championship. Like, we were making fun of this name because it just felt, even though it was held by Pac, who was elevating it, it wasn't being given the sort of prestige that they eventually cultivated with Orange. I'm not saying Pac's run was bad. Pac's run was really, really good. And the fact that he put on a barn burner of a match with Orange Cassidy to begin this 31-0 streak that he had, culminating in the 31-1, like, he is the winningest male competitor in AEW. Like, he has the best record for any champion. And yeah, like, Jon Moxley putting this guy over is in harsh contrast to a match I'm reminded of, the Mimosa match with Jon Moxley, or not Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho, all those years ago. Like, that was a match where Chris Jericho tore him down and underestimated him, and the build to those matches was Jericho just laughing at Orange and putting him down, and Orange splashing him with orange juice and ruining a $40,000 jacket or whatever it was. Um, but sure enough, Chris Jericho was upset. He was surprised by this upstart, this cosplayer. And I loved the fact that Moxley went and was like, he looks like the real thing to me. And then he's just like, don't disappoint us. We're expecting great things. And he said we, as in, me included. We. And I just loved this promo from Moxley. I thought it was powerful, and it's sort of put into my mind, even though, like, beforehand I was like, okay, cool, we're having, Moxley have the international title. This promo put it into my head that Cassidy could do big things if he beats Moxley here. Yeah. Let's have Cassidy win this match. And then Moxley won the match, and I was like, oh, well, I'm not surprised. I think I would have been surprised if Cassidy had it retained, and I would have been excited for that. But I'm not surprised Moxley won, and I'm very impressed with the match that they put on.
Yeah, absolutely. Just even before we got into the match, I mean, yeah, like we said, John just putting it over and fantastic promo. And even Cassidy just showing some babyface fire and actually cutting a promo. I mean, I think it just added a lot to it, made it have a big match feel. So, I mean, and the performance we'll get into in a second, just, yeah, incredibly and feel like just deserved to main event, honestly, like one of AEW's biggest shows of the year.
Oh, 100%. Loved it.
So we get into the entrance. Great to see the entire BCC together. Up until this point, we're seeing two victories for three men of the BCC coming into this match. A united front, Cassidy being walked from the back alongside the best friends and Kris Statlander, excuse me. Well, we get into the match itself. Both men just showing out. I mean, we get the story of Orange, obviously, as the reign continues, 31 defenses up into this point, successful defenses as well, just being beaten down, and it's taking its toll. His back, his hand, the orange punch isn't as strong as it has been. The shoulders, the neck, all those things. You're seeing the kinesio tape on him. It's much more of a walking wounded, and he's been able to overcome all these odds. So furthermore to the point of him just being great character work and well, like we said, elevating this title, but ultimately it finally catches up with him. I mean, we get towards the end, we get that just the visual of a bloody Orange Cassidy. I mean, the color this guy gets in. I mean, it almost there's parts of him that turn orange. I mean, it was apropos. But the visual of a bloody Cassidy kicking out of a Death Rider, that first one, it was like shocked Jon Moxley as well. And then we get the ultimately at the end, another Death Rider just seals the deal, and kind of Orange just trying to reach, and ultimately John comes away with the victory. Like we stated before, of course, the notion of having a three-time former world champion in AEW alone wanting to go after this international title. I mean, you said it. Pac had a solid reign and helped elevate it, defended it internationally. The crazy, ridiculous reign of Orange Cassidy, 32 defenses, 31 and 1 over 326 days. I mean, to be fair, I think this is one that you can now say you have the world title and the AEW's sort of secondary intercontinental-esque title is now the international title ahead of the TNT championship. I think is a fair thing to say.
The TNT booking has helped that along immensely, because the TNT booking doesn't exist. I think they let one of the interns do it, and that guy has not been employed for at least 8 months. So, whoever is booking the international title, kudos. This is probably how the TNT title should be booked, not passed along by hot potato. And also big kudos to Jon Moxley for finishing a match without gigging, without getting color himself. Congratulations, buddy! You won a title and did not wear a crimson mask. It's rare, John, that we see that. Joking aside, I thought that was also a really really good touch that we've seen blood on Orange Cassidy. This this guy who has had so many wars, the kinesio tape out the wazoo, the commentator saying yes, the orange punch is not as strong as it used to be with the injuries to the hand, the strap around the hand, and we've seen that in the match. The orange punch, John kicking out of that easy. Um, but some of my favorite moments, there's two of my favorite moments, both Orange Cassidy's, with the orange kicks getting more and more violent and thrust kicks eventually coming in there and knocking the pan out of Jon Moxley. I loved it. Seeing the sort of the I am Orange Cassidy and I do not have a catchphrase just sort of which is going to become his catchphrase, ironically enough. And he's beating the tar out of the guy who invented Death Jutsu. Um and then at the very end, like Jon Moxley about to do the hit the Death Rider, hands go up. I think it's going to be the hands in the pocket spot one last time. And he just flips a double bird, and that was all. That was all the fat lady needed to sing about Orange Cassidy. I thought that was a fantastic end to a title match. Defiant champion going out and putting on such a match that he has been in a loss to a three-time AEW World Heavyweight title, has been elevated to a potentially main event scene where eventually he could hold that AEW World Heavyweight title himself. And I don't think that's obscene to ask for, because this man just put on a banger of a match with Jon Bloody Moxley. And yeah, that's pretty much all that needs to be said about freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy.
Yeah, fantastic showing from Orange here, of course. Obviously, the work that he's put in before he got the championship, and then the subsequent reign that he's put on there. And this match, much like a Ricky Starks and Brian Danielson match earlier, where Ricky ended up taking the loss, this is a great showing and great piece to help elevate him to whatever he may go on to next, perhaps challenging again for the AEW World Championship. We've seen him challenge once before, but yeah, it's just fantastic, and you love to see it. Great showing at the end. We get Moxley just going up the ramp with the rest of the BCC. BCC all winners on this night. We went up the ramp, gave Orange Cassidy the ring to let him get his flowers, give him appreciation, have his moment for the incredible reign that he has. And it ends the show on that. So, I mean, honestly, there was a lot of contention because we had just two back-to-back weekends with big high-profile shows. Obviously, you're all in London, and then your perennial All Out that happens every year. Some folks were maybe underestimating this show, and there maybe, whether you believe it or not, that some matches should not have even been on this card itself. I think the net positive from what we got out of this show definitely was a positive, to be sure. Some folks were saying just, this was a fantastic pay-per-view overall. Again, be that as it may, we got to see a little bit more of the Ring of Honor championships on here, which is, of course, probably a caveat that even Tony Khan mentioned on the post-show media scrum, that, we're trying to fit essentially two pay-per-views worth of matches and builds and such into a back-to-back weekend. So maybe that's something that is a victim of circumstance, but honestly, like, the ROH tag team match was fun and engaging. We got a big beefy boy match for the ROH television championship. Love me some Joe. I'm not going to argue if we have a Joe match on a television show or pay-per-view. I won't scoff at that, but yeah, I think to wind down my point, maybe a little underestimated, but solid show, to be sure, I think was fair to say.
Oh, 100%. Another way to sort of fix this is not to have 13 matches on a card, TK. I'm not gonna lie, buddy, but we have WWE do a PLE a month, yes, 100%, so they can get away with 6 matches on a card. 68 is their thing, except WrestleMania. But this is your second in a week, and you had 13 matches, I think, on both cards. There was a lot of wrestling going on in your company, and you said you had trouble filling these. Like, my guy, you don't need to have double digit matches in these. Like, this could have gotten away with 9 matches. I can look at this and think of at least 3 to 4 matches that I didn't really care for and probably could have been taken off there. So it's not something you need to strive for. Despite what he says in a recent tweet about his comments that he doesn't really pay attention to people complaining about the build, because when they put on a really good pay per view, um, yeah, no one has confidence in your pay per view beforehand, and that's where the complaints come, because you are too busy trying to have so many matches on this card, and yet you had 81,000, however many people the previous week, also worrying, well, 3 weeks out, who's on this card that I've paid a lot of money to watch this pay per view at Wembley? Um, the the sort of last minute style booking that TK has become synonymous with this last year doesn't sit well with me, regardless of whether or not he puts on a good pay per view, because he doesn't always hit it. This was one of the good ones. All In was good, All Out was good, but you can't rest on your laurels just because this has happened. Like, I don't know, TK. The build does also kind of build my enjoyment of the matches. You cannot just throw out a Jon Moxley and Orange Cassidy match and expect everybody to love it because Jon Moxley and Orange Cassidy are there. That's why we build new stars. Danny Garcia should have been on this card somewhere. I love that kid. He should have been on this card in a singles match. He should be being pushed more often. I love him. He's fantastic. And this stupid sports entertainment dance gimmick that he has me laughing all the way to the bank. That man needs his chops tested in building a series with someone. All of these individuals need to be able to build a match with someone. The Miro Powerhouse Hobbs match, I mean, it had build, if you can call that a build, but it could have been cut. It honestly could have been cut from this card. So could the Joe and Shane Taylor match. I loved both of these matches, but both of these matches could have been cut. With how we treat the TNT title, the Luchasaurus match could have been cut. No one would have mattered. With how TK treats the women in this company, I'm surprised there was a women's match on the main card. Obviously with the fact that we had Bullet Club Gold and FTR and Young Bucks all together, I'm like surprised they got such a long time. 21 and a half minutes. That could have been cut in half. That's a tag match. Like all of these things, obviously I'm being facetious with some of these and sarcastic for a lot of them. But, just try and listen to the fans in sense of yes, you have the talent that will put on good matches. But we want to build our expectation to watch those matches. That's what you're building. You're not building some sort of storyline. That is a secondary byproduct. You're building the expectation of the fans. And that's what needs to be done more regularly for AEW pay-per-views.
We've talked about it before and you talked about the last minute portion of it. Yeah, we try to do in the past, we tried to do sort of like builds or try to give some predictions and such, but yeah, we try to wait as long as possible, but then there would be 4 or 5 matches announced. What was it? Used to be the Rampage right before, or now it's maybe Collision. It's a challenge, right? You can have matches be put on that might be underestimated and then show up and show out, aka Miro and a Hobbs, right? May not have the greatest build, but it has, you know, maybe a minuscule build and then over delivered. So I'm agreeing you want to be invested, not just be pleasantly surprised that these guys put on great performances. Be that as it may, can we continue to do better? Of course we can. And, it's just TK even mentioned on the post show media scrum that maybe having somebody closely aligned with him, and he had Brian Danielson fly with him for a couple weeks, and Brian was like, I can't keep the schedule. We end up having Jimmy Jacobs as a sort of quasi sort of assistant or second in command to kind of just help keep TK organized and maybe just bounce ideas off of and kind of do these things. So I mean, again, maybe if it's even something that, or TK's possibly talked about like a booking committee and kind of help take things off his plate. He's got so much, his stats company, the Jags, the football, soccer, right, as well, and he's got so many, and he's doing the AEW thing, so he's got a lot on his plate, and having a little help here or there. I know, I could probably use some help from time to time. It's never a bad thing, but yeah, I agree that could have some of the matches underestimated or possibly even been cut or just put on a Dynamite Rampage or a Collision, sure, but they were put on here, and like we said, overestimated themselves, did a good job. There were some fair criticisms, but there's some positives to be taken away. No show is going to be perfect, but overall, this was a decent pay-per-view. We got the next one, Wrestle Dream, in about a month's time. This is going to be a little bit of a different style of pay-per-view to honor Antonio Inoki. TK has mentioned that he might want to have New Japan involved with it, perhaps Stardom as well. So it's maybe not your standard AEW pay-per-view. And then subsequently down the line, we're going to have Full Gear. So hopefully if that's going to be a proper AEW pay-per-view, we can have some strong builds and a little bit more of a investment from the fans going in, as opposed to being pleasantly surprised by the outcome of the pay-per-view.
I completely agree.
Yep. Appreciate everybody this far. So those were our thoughts on AEW All Out. Let us know down in the comment section below on YouTube or hit us up on Twitter, Instagram. Let us know what your thoughts are on AEW All Out, the show itself, what some of your favorite matches were. Did your favorites win? And what was your favorite moment from the show? All right. Lots of things we covered here. 2 pay-per-views, some obvious news there, but yeah, overall, quite a hectic week, but I feel like the tail end, the weekend with the pay-per-views definitely delivered in spite of a lot of things going on in the wrestling world. So, I mean, honestly, you can't knock for having a wrestling-filled weekend.
You really can't. I mean, uh, maybe you can because it's a lot of wrestling to catch up on, but that's first world problems. I really enjoyed the fact that we got 3 pay-per-views in short succession, but please let's not make it a regular thing. That is kind of a lot of wrestling to sort of keep up on.
Yeah, I believe TK may want to keep the All In London portion on that bank holiday, and of course, the next weekend here in the States is Labor Day, so we had
Labor Day,
a
yeah.
yeah, so we had a big long weekend with that too. So that's when traditionally the All Out has been there around that first weekend, that Labor Day holiday in the States. So maybe that could potentially be slated for next year. I don't know when it comes to the WWE pay-per-view in the late August, early September could play into that because obviously we had a little extra one with that, the Payback. But be that as it may, like you said, first world problems. We get to have a lot of wrestling. We had, I mean, geez, you look at the weekend there. Friday was the SmackDown and the Rampage. Saturday was the Collision and the Payback. Sunday was All Out. Lots of hours of wrestling again for the folks that help critique and watch it and give their thoughts. Lots of work to be shared for sure. But again, first world problems, so it is what it is. Hopefully, you all enjoyed at least something coming out of this weekend. We had a lot on our plate, so maybe there's a positive there. Definitely shared with us. Let us know down in the comment section below. But yeah, I think overall, we're looking forward to the next portions. Like we said, we have some more regularly scheduled programming from the WWE and AEW, with the next major show coming up would be Wrestle Dream for AEW, and of course an WWE pay-per-view, most likely being we're in the beginning of September, so probably early August. I'll check back in there with that as well. But yeah, so hopefully it's a little spread out. We can catch our breath. But yeah. Ultimately, thank you everybody for another longer episode. Appreciate everybody sticking with us, for listening and watching. Thank you all for the support on the YouTube side, for the audio downloads. Thank you very much. We're going to wind down on out of here. So, for TF Joker,
Thank you very much for watching, listening, supporting, and more importantly, not acting like a jackass.
you love to see it. And for me, Pretty Tony, we thank you for your time and letting us be a part of your day. And remember, be good to yourself, be good to each other. We'll catch you next time. Peace.